Hey everyone, 8BitPonies here. This week's episode 7 of Bloodstone had an audio issue that we didn't catch until about 90 minutes through. So we lost all the audio for the cast through the first 90 minutes of the program. I've added captions to try to recapture the essence of what was said, even if I'm not able to reproduce everything that the players said word for word. Hope you still enjoy. Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to Bloodstone, a 4Dads D&D production in 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons in the world of Forgotten Realms. I am your Dungeon Master, 8BitPonies, and here's the cast. Hey cast, how's it going? When last we left our intrepid group of adventurers, the party were still somewhat disjointed and spread throughout the city of Heliogopolis, the future capital of the Kingdom of Bloodstone, in the northeastern region of Faerun. They had just returned from a long campaign in the Underdark, and were getting a little bit of rest and relaxation, a little bit of rearmament and recuperation, and aligning to what their goals were to be for the next, I suppose, next few days. Eldrick, the Baron of Morov, had retired to his family's manor, was spending some time with his mother and also taking care of some of the business of state. The rest of the party were staying at a nice inn in town called the Bloodstone Arms, and were taking care of some of their own individual business in town, doing some shopping, doing some research, all those types of things. They have started to wonder exactly what had happened to Eldrick, because he hasn't been seen in almost 2 days, or hadn't been seen in almost 2 days, and had basically just up and disappeared. When Alanere went to Oakheart, which is the manor of the Oaks family, and had an audience with Eldrick over breakfast the morning of the day that we're currently on. He found out that they exchanged some information and some opinions on various members of the party, and some of the revelations that had been made, or that they had thought were made during their previous the previous leg of their journey, and had come to the consensus that, at least for the time being, the party, as it stands, would stay the same, or at least the party members in question, the party members that were in question, are to be trusted, at least for the time being. That kind of ended with Eldrick inviting the party through Alanere to dinner at Oakheart this evening, and we're quickly approaching evening. But as the party prepared for that event, Sprout ended up in town to try to do some shopping for some nicer clothing, and on his way back to Coinholm and the Coinholm district and the Bloodstone Arms Inn, he encountered a strange group of humanoid creatures, mostly humanoid creatures, that he believed to be some type of cult. They were behaving strangely, walking in concert, in step with one another, and after a short time following them, or at least observing them, they turned in his direction and came up to address him. In a chorus of 6 voices, the strange group said to Sprout that, "At last, the Grey Wanderer, you have been expected." We'll pick up right there, actually, with Sprout in the marketplace of Coinholm, on his way back to the Bloodstone Arms, faced just 10 feet away or so from a sextet of very strange-looking individuals that have just made a proclamation that may be startling, or confusing, or disturbing. And Sprout, how would you respond to that? Go ahead and make a perception check, if you would. Be a good idea. That's a plus 8 for you, I believe. Plus 9, okay. So 16 total. You're pretty sure that they're addressing you directly. Now, granted, as I explained before, the 6 of them are all just kind of standing stock still, straight up and down, very rigid posture. Their eyes are milky white and appear to be sightless, or at least as far as you can tell, but they are facing in your direction, and as one, their consciousness appears to be trained on you. You are the Grey Wanderer. Our search has come to an end. You are the Grey Wanderer. It has been decreed. You are expected. You will accompany us. The voice kind of the chorus of voices kind of raises up at the end to denote that does appear to have been a question. The voices, or the figures, kind of pause for a moment, and they kind of shift, maybe a little restlessly. The first time since you have seen them that they're not moving in perfect concert with one another. Each of them kind of shift their weight a little bit, as though they're thinking, or they're not sure how to respond to that. And then the bugbear, which is in the lead with the insectoid creature, the bugbear speaks on its own, and in its characteristically gruff voice. It says, "That which is light from darkness." One of the creatures behind it, one of the humanoid creatures behind it, says in sort of a more lilting, maybe elvish voice, "That which is life from death." The person next to it, "That which is hope from despair." The dwarf behind says, "That which is redemption for the lost." And then the 6 of them once again in chorus say, "That which is all." Zaxis. You are summoned, Grey Wanderer. Okay. So they appear, once again, there's kind of a ripple that passes through them, and there are actual smiles that appear on their faces. And they don't rush forward, but they begin to lurch forward toward you as you start to move toward them. And without any further words or really any other actions at all, the 6 of them sort of move past you, or rather the first 2 do. They move past you to allow you in within the 6 of them, to where before you, or I guess behind you, as you're facing the opposite direction of them, the bugbear and the insectoid creature step past you, to where you are flanked by the two humanoid creatures that are smaller than you, but are at least creatures that are very similar to like the humans and elves that you know from this world. And then the dwarf and the halfling that were trailing behind them are now in front of you. You feel a pair of hands reach up and grab you, not roughly, but just kind of place hands on your arms, not quite to your shoulders because you're a little bit taller than they are. They reach and place the two humanoid creatures directly next to you, reach up and put hands on your forearms and start to gently rotate you to where you are in their midst, but kind of centered within them. And then everything goes dark. You cannot see. And you hear a voice, which is actually 6 voices within your head. Do not be alarmed, Grey Wanderer. We know the way. We will shepherd you to that which is all. And the two hands that are on your forearms kind of lock up in your clothing, and they begin to move forward and not drag you, but guide you forward with them. Do you react in any way? Okay. So they begin to walk with you in complete silence, other than just the footfalls of their passage. You still can hear the goings on, the clamor of the city at dusk. Likely before too much longer, you hear bells ringing in the hour. It is probably around 7 in the evening at this point in time, as you are being gently led onward in a direction that you're not familiar with, as you're not terribly familiar with the city. You still feel cobbles beneath your feet for a good long time, but they continue to very gently, very slowly, very methodically direct you onward toward whatever destination they have in mind. Before too long, you begin to hear the sounds of the city quiet, and you believe that you've been led outward, out from the city, and through the gates and into the wilderness beyond. You can still hear. Go ahead and make me a perception check again. Oh yeah. You still hear the sound of water. You know that the city of Heliogabalus is on the bank of a very large lake. And so for even after the sounds of the city leave you behind, you can still hear the sounds of the lake not too far away. It's a little cold, as it is nearing the midpoint of autumn on this world. And this region is colder latitudinally than it's kind of on the cold side of temperate, and so you feel more than no. You feel that it is the sun is beginning to set, or the sun has reached the point of setting, and you are outside of the city in the dark in the middle of autumn. So there's a bit of a chill in the air. But no further discussion, no further action other than just the slow, inexorable walk toward what you don't know. We're going to go back to the Bloodstone Arms for Thoros'l, Makaria, and Alanere. The 3 of you are probably assembled by this point in time in the common room, having agreed to do so in order to head toward Oakheart together for dinner this evening. It is very notable that as you've waited for a bit, Sprout does not come down from his room. Alanere, it should be said that your day of researching the Grey Wanderer did not bear any fruit. It was you were looking for really any kind of religious mentions of that title or that name, and there are lots of gray, like lots of titles in various mythologies with the name Gray in it, but the Grey Wanderer hasn't appeared anywhere in any of your research today. It was explained to him, the general address and how to get there, yes. Alanere, if you're trying to talk, you're on mute. We haven't heard anything yet from you. Yeah. Great. Predictably, there's no answer. Sprout, is it? It's dark. No lights within. It's debatable as to whether there's a window in Sprout's room. So it doesn't appear to have been. There's no food or anything in here that would suggest that he's been here recently. Nothing, no fire or anything in the hearth. Just an empty, dark room. Lazar, who's taken shift as the night manager or the night operator, is kind of in the center of a flurry of activity. And as you kind of walk up to the bar and give him that message, he gives you a wink and a finger gun and a nod, and then is back to his business. All right. So easily within the or before the allotted time of eighth bell, at the manor of Oakheart, you reach the gates. Your party is expected. You are led into the great hall of Oakheart, where a table is already set. The Baron and the Lady Oaks are not currently there, but you are led to your places that have been made for you at the great table. I'll go ahead and switch over to the battle map. The the guards kind of take a look at all of you. Um, the house guard for Oakheart, they wear the same colors Alanere you saw Eldrick wearing great this morning. A great deal more simple, but they're also armed, um, and are very clearly wearing at least like breastplates or leather armor. They look at all of you, look you all over, their eyes straying to your weapons, Thoros'l, and almost immediately forgetting you entirely as they take in Makaria. None of them say a word to you other than just the pleasantries of greeting you and welcoming you to the manor, and please follow. Right this way you are expected, or we'll escort you to the great hall. But nobody says anything about the fact that you are armed or beyond just maybe a double take at Makaria. Nobody says anything to your party of that nature at all. Okay. Um, you attempt that. I assume you attempt that with um, the doorway to the into the manor as you're being led. Once you're indoors, I see. Okay, so you are actually led in through the main gate. I am switching you over to the battle map. Forget the fact that I said battle map. It's just a map. Okay, so you are led in through the main gate, which is here. You'll note that there is a several house guard that you pass as you go through the main courtyard. Courtyard is open air. This area, the centerpiece of the courtyard, with in addition to some um, kind of hardier sort of decorative plants. Uh, Hardier because it's getting later on in the year, and most of the flowers and such in this area uh, don't survive much past maybe late summer, and this is beginning to get into mid autumn. Some hardier decorative plants are set all about the courtyard, but the main centerpiece is the huge tree. And the tree, with its golden leaves um, up above, it's clearly in the throes of its metamorphosis for the year, but it doesn't appear to have shed any leaves yet. The leaves have turned gold, but you don't see any scattering of leaves or any brown leaves on the ground or anything like that either. And you don't really see anything within the branches of the tree, Alanere specifically, that would suggest that it has started to shed its leaves. Um, Also, not something that you would expect this late in the year. It's certainly started to get cold, and most of the trees, if they're not evergreens, they are certainly beginning to reach that later stage. But the guards lead you past the tree and to the doors to the main hall. This would be the ones, Makaria, that you would have an opportunity, and they fly open as you approach. The guards start for an instant. Hands probably do stray in the vicinity of weapons, but they are better trained than your common garden variety house guard, and they don't immediately make a scene. They kind of glance around at the two of you, see the wide grin on your face, Makaria, and in a practiced manner, uh, shove down anything that they might have wanted to say, and lead you on into the Great Hall. As I mentioned before, the Great Hall is it's vaulted in that the ceiling goes all the way up to the top floor. There's no like balconies or anything overlooking the Great Hall from the second floor. It's just a large double height room that have various pieces of art, portraits of the various members of the Oaks family who have come before and have gone on. Um, a large fireplace roaring against the north wall, and a large table set with places for 6. You are shown to your various places. In Makaria's case, a guard pulls out a chair for you and helps you to your seat. After a few moments, there is a kind of thin voice that calls out and draws your attention to a very angular, graying, sort of balding man in much nicer clothing than the guards, still in the white and green Oaks colors. Very clearly a man of station, not someone that I think that any of you have met previously, but kind of in a thin, sort of, not exactly quiet, but a thinner kind of voice. He calls, "The Baron and Lady Oaks." And Eldrick and his mother, arm in arm, stride around the corner and join you. Eldrick? That was holy, yes. You will note that, Eldrick, you have been set at the head of the table, which is traditionally your father's position, and your mother has been set at your right hand. Thoros'l has been set at your left, and then the rest of the party with Sprout at the opposite end of the table, with a good section of the table set aside for him. Mm-hmm. I believe that's the case. Of your current companions, though, I think that he's the only one. Well, that was you. That was actually, you weren't here for that. That was Mauricio and Miranda and I believe Jesse, but I don't know that you were here for that actually. But there was a short time on one of your previous stays in Heliogabalus when you brought the statuette here that some members of your party joined you in the manor for a very short time. Probably not formally, but yes. Again, your parents were not here the last time that during that specific encounter, but they were at the birthday party for the king at Thistle Manor, and so Thoros'l would have probably met with both of your parents at that time, and so would Alanere. But it would not have been in a formal capacity. It would be more of an interrogation. One thing to note, in most of Damaran or Bloodstone society, the formal dinners are generally held in courses. Servants will bring in one course. There are um, certain tenets of etiquette that certain types of conversation are appropriate during certain courses. And the meal progresses through and gets, maybe more serious during the middle part of the dinner, and then as the libations continue to flow, gets considerably less serious as the end of the meal uh, approaches. But there is an oddity in it, Eldrick, as you're even having this conversation or giving these instructions to your companions. You kind of look around the table and see that what has been laid out in front of you is a you have the entire meal effectively already laid out on the table. Like what you would consider the various courses are arranged artfully across the table already, but everything's already here. You would expect, maybe give me a charisma check just to see if you pick up on. It is family style, very much family style. Well, 13. Yeah, you are a little mystified, but after a moment, it clicks with you. This is to be considered a private dinner, and it has probably been done this way to reduce the flow of uh, non-essential personnel. Servants will not be coming in throughout various parts of the meal, so that if you decided that this was going to be more of a business conversation or a private conversation, it could be done so in that way without having to worry too much about servants overhearing things that they shouldn't. But your mother says nothing as you're giving your instructions to your friends that you're going to hold business until after. She does not. She does not say anything to contradict what you're telling your friends. She inclines her head in a very polite way and favors you with a smile, and you can see that the gesture is not lost on her. He is the ambassador from Elven lands to the northwest. And yes, ambassador. I recall making your acquaintance briefly at His Majesty the King's birthday celebration some months prior. It is good to see you again. Well, perhaps we will remedy that situation this evening. Make everybody make me an insight check. Nice. Wow. You gu- you guys are you guys are rolling very high. You don't have to worry about this one, Sprout. You're in good shape. If if uh, if Madeleine has any reaction to your appearance, Makaria, you entirely missed it. It is she gives you the same sort of very polite nod and smile that she gave to Thoros'l whenever Eldrick announced him, and she says, with a very genteel expression and smile, says, "Be welcome in my home, lady. I have not had opportunity to visit the Great Library on the Sword Coast, but I hope to, perhaps soon. It has always been I have always been very impressed by the scholarship of I believe they are referred to as the Avowed, the monks within. Indeed, and I'm certain that there will be time, as I understand there are congratulations to be offered. Your upcoming nuptials. She kind of gives Eldrick a very hopeful smile. And she starts to laugh. It's a very very quiet, very clearly not like meant to mock, but just kind of an, an outflow of breath. I apologize. A small joke, more for my son's benefit than at your expense. My apologies. My son is not known for bringing home many beautiful women, and I had to take the opportunity to sort of uh, tweak him a bit. Yeah, I hope that I made no offense. So I think we're going to get along swimmingly. And she kind of the last little bit is she kind of leans across the table toward you. We'll say, because I just said that you're seated across the table from her next to Thoros'l, and that the ambassador is directly next to her on Eldrick's right hand side. So Thoros'l is at the left, Madeleine's at the right. You are to on Thoros'l's other side, and Alanere is on Madeleine's other side. And she kind of leans a little bit across the table and gives you a wink as she continues to laugh. Well, given that given that Eldrick is busying himself with his cup, Madeleine will, still in that same sort of tone, um, please be welcome, all of you, within our home. It has been entirely too long since my son has brought companions, and that you have spent so much time together these last months, and that I've heard so much about you and have very little other than just names and perhaps glances at faces to add to them, has caused me no small amount of consternation these past few weeks. It is truly a blessing from Ilmater that you have all been brought here in this time of reflection and relaxation. So please be at ease here. My home for for the evening is your home. One ping, single ping. T Tegarth, yes. Yeah. She says, I understand that that some of you spent some time recently in the the land of Symbia. Yes? Eldrick may or may not have told you that my family is originally from Orgulin, which is the capital city in Symbia. You may or may not know. So I'm very interested in hearing your impressions of Chancelgaunt. But there'll be plenty of time for that. Please partake. Uh, we should get to the dinner while it is still fresh and hot. I think that was probably mentioned, but I don't recall the note myself. um, that probably did come up in a previous conversation, but whatever it was probably swept under the rug because you were very clearly not executed. That is correct. Lord Presker Talendar, one of the premier nobles of the city of Selgant. whose sword Thoros'l still carries. Yeah. It's been a bit. Yeah, it's been a few times. You correct. Yeah. Oh, that's true. Yeah, 3 times. Yeah. Yeah, you spent a lot of time on the wrong side of the law, young man. Yeah. Espionage and grand theft. Yeah. Well, the conversation, and so pleasant dinner time conversation ensues. Madeleine spends an equal amount of time um, talking to Eldrick and also making sure that each one of you has an equal share of her attention. She'll speak with Alanere about the elven lands from which you claim to hail, how you find the bureaucracy within the shifting bureaucracy within the Bloodstone Kingdom, and some very pointed questions about what business does an ambassador have traveling in with her son in the strange uh, the strange sort of adventures that Eldrick has gotten up to. It's not probing questions. It's more kind of half joking, but there's just a little bit of seriousness as she seems to be genuinely confused about what if you're an ambassador to this country from far, far away. How did you get mixed up with my son in these weird things that he's doing? And are you eating well enough? Well, the fact that my son has come home safely, despite having many very dangerous adventures, from what I've heard, and she kind of snaps a mock severe glare over Eldrick as she says so, is a testament to your capabilities. So I thank you formally as a mother for bringing my son home. with certainty. He always got into trouble growing up. He would always pick out the most the uh, pursuits that would lead him into the most conflict, the most difficult, even as a child. Leaving home at the tender age of 5 to become a page, to a knight within the order, as a friend of the family, and a kind of a dark look passes over her face for an instant as she seems to be remembering something unpleasant. But then it passes just as quickly as it comes up, and then becoming apparently many times over the hero of the realm, in no small part due to your own contributions. And she looks kind of around the table at everyone. And Mr. Thoros'l, what is it exactly that you do? Charisma check. You manage to keep your elbow out of the gravy boat as you're kind of fumbling for your words, but not much better than that. have you held have you held many positions or many careers? You are you are elvish, and if I'm not mistaken, um, your people live long and have many lives over the course of one existence. Is this just what you do now? Have you had other career pursuits in your lifetime? Oh well, you'll be right at home here in Heliogopolis then, as that seems to be what we're becoming known for. A haven for mercenaries and adventurers now. That's fair to say. Well, thank you. Your name, I believe, has come up um, multiple times in conversations with my son, and I am to understand that you are a very fierce and feared warrior. Your contributions, again, to the continued health and well-being of my darling son are very much appreciated. Thank you. Give it another 6 months, and we'll think about it. it it does, though. It's more due to the shared perception, I guess, with between Madeleine and the rest of the room, that Thoros'l doesn't necessarily want it to continue. She kind of senses that, or seems to sense that you're not comfortable, and after her words of gratitude, she kind of lets it slip and returns to her own meal for a moment, give you an opportunity to escape if that is your wish. Well, then Madeleine actually stands up, excuses herself, and stands up, and she gets an impish look on her face. And she grabs the back of her chair and starts to pull it around the table to take up the position that should have been Sprout's, not at the far end of the table, but across the table. Pulls it around, like kind of trots with her chair and pulls it around. There are very lavish rugs and carpets that are over the entirety of the floor, so it doesn't make a whole lot of noise. But she does, like, pulls the chair around Eldrick to the other side of the table and sets it directly next to Makaria, and then sits down. She says, "Apologies, all. I wanted an opportunity to have a discussion with my new best friend here. As I understand, you're a sorceress, wizardess." Oh, make me make me a deception check. Yeah, go ahead and make that deception check. Oh yeah, there you go. Ooh, there there are a few moments where Makaria pauses as though she's trying to make up the next bit, and it is pretty obvious, at least to you, Thoros'l and Eldrick, that uh, that she is embellishing a great deal, and that she's flat out making up the rest. Like that there, you get the feeling that there probably aren't a lot of good things that she has to say about her upbringing, but she's making her best attempt. Madeleine, though, for her part, she's eating it up, and she is a very attentive, very enthusiastic listener. Well, again, if Madeleine picks up on any of that at all, it is like you can't tell it. It's she appears to be very enthusiastic, very attentive, and appears to just be hanging on your every word. I, I must ask, we have so few. Uh, we have so few. It seems like she wants to ask a question, but she's not sure if she is supposed to ask the question. well, I can't help but notice your heritage is quite exotic, and we have so few people in the Bloodstone Kingdom of your like. In fact, I can't say that I have ever seen your like before. She her eyes kind of linger a bit on your horns, and then as she sees your tail, her face kind of blanks, and her eyes get wide for a second, and she returns just completely wide-eyed and searching, just very, very curious, very interested. Is it inappropriate? And I apologize if this is I mean no offense whatsoever, but is it inappropriate to ask what what are you? Do I know your parents? she she laughs at that. Well, she holds up her head, kind of gives you a very approving look, appraising at first, but then very approving. She says, "Well, if I may say so, resplendent is exactly the word that I would use to describe you, Makaria. You are a delight, and I desperately hope that we have more time to get to know one another. Did Eldrick tell you that I once dabbled as something of a practitioner of the arcane arts myself?" Well, no, there's no more of it than that. I proved to be an awful student, but I did have an interest in the arcane for a short time growing up. No, nothing ever came of it, or not much ever came of it. I I remember a few minor cantrips, things to help around the house a bit. She kind of glances at Eldrick, um, just briefly there, but nothing, certainly nothing of the caliber of your studies and your achievements in that field. Um, mhm. Go ahead and make an insight check. Oh no, give it a 23. Wow. Um, you yeah. If she's intentionally trying to deceive you, she's doing a great job. It doesn't appear that she has any, like, from what you can tell, even with a 23, you get the feeling that she is very much who she says she is, um, and and houses no small amount of embarrassment about it. Actually, like she flushes a little bit as she's talking about how poorly she received the training that she had, and that she never really made much of it. And absolutely 100%, like you can see it in her eyes and the way her pupils dilate a little bit. She is, if there is a word to describe her beyond attentive and enthusiastic and curious, it's jealous. She looks at you and sees, this is what this is what I really wanted and couldn't do. But So that conversation, like you two will titter back and forth a little bit, and um, she will at one point in time she will ask, probably closer to the end of the meal after the drinks have been flowing for a little while. She spends the entire rest of the evening at your side. She wants to hear everything that you have to say, Makaria. She wants absolutely everything that she can glean from you. She you start to believe that you are in fact her new best friend. And she actually reaches out when she thinks that you've kind of turned your attention elsewhere. She kind of reaches out and looks like she might actually reach up and try to touch your horns, but then she pulls her hand back before you uh, turn back her direction, and gives you another polite smile, and is a little flushed, a little embarrassed that it got that far. Um, and curio- her curiosity just keeps growing, and as she gets a little bit more inebriated as the evening goes on, her her inhibitions are lowering significantly, and you can tell, like it progresses. You can see the progression as she gets drunker, she gets freer, and she starts to tell stories about Eldrick when he was a baby, and going for maximum embarrassment. And believe me, there is embarrassment to be had. She will probably tell a story about how uh, the greatest fright of her entire life, at least up to that point, was when Eldrick, at 3 years old, came barreling into the Great Hall, dragging dragging his father's sword and chasing an imaginary goblin through the tables, and it took 4 servants to catch him and take the sword away and take it back to the private chambers, because he was uh, evasive, we'll say, as a 3-year-old. But naked as the day he was born, and dragging behind this uh, you know, this golden longsword. She'll never forget it in as long as she lives that moment. Um, on that note, I would like for each one of you, Eldrick included, to make a history check or intelligence check, whichever is better for the two for you. 4. All right. Makaria, I shouldn't have had you make that roll because you were not there to actually have this knowledge. But Eldrick, when she obviously this is a memory that you do not have because you would have been too young to remember it. But when she talks about you naked as the day you were born, dragging a golden longsword through the great hall, between the chairs in the great hall, you get a flash of memory, not of that moment, but from a very different moment where you're standing across from a an 8 foot tall mind flayer in black and silver leather armor in a strange dark citadel with these purple crystalline pillars encircling the field, and a man in dark armor stepping into the room and going toe to toe with Thoros'l, and he was carrying a glowing golden longsword. 21. That's a really good. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. 21. That's what you recall. You just have this flash of memory of a golden longsword being wielded against your companion, Thoros'l, by a man in dark, scary armor that you encountered beneath Garen's Ford. Garen's Stop. I keep. The night continues the hour gets very late. Eventually, Eldrick, your mother, after probably far too many drinks and, well, I would say too much, but far too many embarrassing stories about your younger days, but with a great deal of laughter shared by most members of the assembled companions, your mother excuses herself and bids you all good night and mentions, I do hope to continue this conversation again. I do hope that you will all be able to make it to Eldrick's ball at the end of the week. My apologies. My son has yet to finalize the guest list, but I am certain that each of you will be on it. Yes. She kind of turns toward Eldrick. So consider this a formal invitation, even if you haven't received the official one yet. I would like to see all of you again here at the ball to celebrate Eldrick's ascension to the kingdom, the barony. That's an actual slip that she says. She says kingship, and then she kind of shakes her head and says barony. At the end of this week, which would be the 20th, which is 3 days hence. After that, she comes around to each of you and offers you her hand to shake, or just a squeeze of your hand or whatever, with the exception of Makaria, who she gives a full hug to. And and then Durban Holy appears again and escorts Madeleine to the stairwell that is in this corner and up and out of sight, as she's merrily waving to you all as she is escorted out of the room. Which leaves the 4 of you. The room may be a little quieter, a little darker, with the passage of Madeleine Oaks, but more private. I can tell you that. I can tell you that. Just need a minute to look at my long, long list of things. Meyer, you have known him for 10 days. Mm-hmm. Thar. Make me a perception check. 20. You are reasonably certain that you are alone. You will note, as he does so, they are the two of them are aglow. The 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 one you've seen, the one he's had for a little while, is consistently wreathed in that same pale green flame. The other one that he pulls out is a flicker with greenish lightning, and both of them are actively glowing. Only when you will it.
If I want to put this stone back together, I need both of them to do that and then change it into something else through the ritual. In generic ideas.
So, Makaria, I'll have to ask this. Before we met Thoros'l's daughter, did you know of anyone else who even had knowledge of this ritual, other than the one who taught it to you?
No. I didn't, and I hate, and she'll look right at Thoros'l as she kind of almost goes in with a little G at the end. Yeah. That, unfortunately, I did not. And I didn't even know the full ritual myself until we encountered someone who had another portion that already had part of it going.
So what are the chances someone else having knowledge of this ritual?
At the moment, 100% that 3 people know it. Probably a good 70% that 5 know it.
Do we
Maybe
have an
a good
idea
20% of 10 at the most.
So,
do we know who
we
those
need
10
to-
people would be?
I'm just giving odds. I can only say 100% now. I used to say 2, maybe 1.5. Now it is 3.
Sure, I'm just asking, do you have specific people in mind for those odds? Or is it just you're ballparking the likelihood that your mentor taught others?
She'll nod at that.
Okay.
He's been around. Who knows?
Gotcha.
I think we need to operate on the assumption from here on out that other people have knowledge of this ritual, and these people with the other stones are probably, we have to assume they have knowledge of it, or at least have somebody in their employ that does.
How long does it take to perform the ritual? Like, let's say somebody were to come in the middle of the night and take Eldrick's last 2 stones. And they had the other 5 or whatever. How long would it take? What would they need to make it happen?
Time. It is complicated. It's not just let me detect magic and you've seen me do it. It's easy. I can, and she'll move her hand and light on a candle. Foom, foom. That's easy. This would require space. This would require a setting. This would require multiple ideas that you're able to connect into an arcane framework, that you are able to not only find what it is, so not just the stones, but the power of those stones, create a barrier around that and hope it doesn't get out of it. Not just a barrier where I can just put a circle on the ground. Your daughter was in an entirely different plane. Not by her choice, but think of it as a cage. The further away, the closer, the more you have, it's easier. Then the hardest part is you have to create something to draw it out, and then you have mere moments. Once the mere moments happen, once it starts being drawn, it's almost seconds. Before that, you could prep. You could take time to do it. It just depends. And I also want to correct my my guess. I knew part of it, and Thoros'l's daughter knew part of it. There might be, don't assume that they know every part of it, but they might know 1 of 5 or 1 of 6 steps of it. And that could be dangerous.
Let's go on Alanere's hunch. What would we be able to locate these prepared places?
That would depend on who's
immensely
doing
powerful locations, right? Like we're talking extra planes or prepared citadels or something, right? That might give us an indication of who's doing what if people are preparing these sites, right?
Right, because you prep it almost like blessing. You do have one thing in your favor, though. If the site is prepared and we can find it, then, easy to ruin. But if they have the site and they start, they have to maintain concentration through that ritual, no matter how prolonged it is. But that doesn't mean there's not multiple people helping to maintain that concentration. So that's where I talk about that site, who's involved or what is there to help that focus, because it is mind-ripping.
Sure.
And very deadly.
Yeah, if it requires immense preparation and assuming the others gathering these stones are going to do this ritual, could we not locate the preparation sites or try to at least? I'm not talking about jumping in whenever the ritual starts. I'm talking about figuring out who's making these prepared sites, and that could tell us who our enemies are. Right?
I think so.
What kind of prep would it take for one of these sites?
Immense, right?
Lots of money.
Let me rephrase. What is the skill set? Are we hiring wizards? Are we hiring clerics? Are we hiring diggers?
You need arcane. Blessings from any sort of divine or even perhaps even a little inspiration will help. But to pull off the ritual, it must be arcane. Someone with innate abilities who has no learning would more than likely have themselves destroyed. They
pulling off the ritual. I'm talking about just setting up the site, though.
Well, that's what I mean. Is that site could have mirrors, it could have foci, it could have something to do that. So if Thoros'l had magic and his focus needed obsidian crystals, right? Well, I was thrown into it.
But you kind of understand what's needed, right? The preparation that's needed. Can you use your magic, or can you help someone to locate proper sites that are already being constructed or already ready? I mean, these stones are glowing.
Eldrick, Thoros'l, Alanere, history check.
$22. Natural 20.
Ooh.
12 for Eldrick.
And a 9 for Alanere.
As you're talking about this, Thoros'l, you're asking a question, and you have a flash similar to what Eldrick had just a moment ago of a map that you saw once, that rather than like political lines scrawled across of it, to showing the boundaries of various nations or city-states or trade routes or roads, it had scrawled across it what you recall was explained to you at the time by Alexander Kanar as what are referred to as ley lines. It was in a book that was handed to you by Eldrick. that he pulled out of a satchel shortly while you guys were riding on the Nautiloid.
This is the satchel that I've had since Palachuk.
No, this is the satchel that was tossed to you just
By
before
by Scary Armor Man.
by the Scary Armor Man, just before you phased out of Garen's Stop and into the Astral Sea.
Do you have? I'll say I remember a book that we had in that satchel. It had ley lines. Do you still have that book?
I still have all of that. I can go and get it right now if you give me a moment. Eldrick's going to run up to his room to get that and bring the whole bag of stuff back down.
Okay.
That includes the satchel that was thrown to me, and then anything I have remaining from the odds and ends that were given to me back in Palachuk.
Sure. Yeah, so you have a number of... So what you had from the first satchel was less... You put it all in a bag to keep it all together, but it was the 7, I recall, encoded letters, 7 pages of the odd symbols that you never managed to decode yourselves.
That ended up being the poem of the Dead 3.
That ended up being what Alexander told you was encoded using the poem of the Dead 3. It was determined by sages in Impilter that it was a listing, a letter from someone to someone else. You still don't know who, but detailing the 7 sites that you believe to be the original resting places of the stones.
Yep.
You also have a map that had a gigantic circle drawn on it that had smaller circles in places around that circle that corresponded to those 7 locations.
Yep.
So that's what you got from Palachuk. Later, you discovered you also had a letter that was addressed to you. That on the back of it, invisibly, was the poem of the Dead 3. You found that accidentally, but you did find it. You have a second letter that was left for you in Symbia, just outside Selgond, and Alanere found that hanging from a tree near where he was confronted by the little girl. And then in Garen's Stop, the man in the demon armor tossed you a satchel that had a bunch of different things in it, several books on various arcane topics, some schema that looked like it was some huge construction that you were never able to figure out exactly what it was trying to build, but it was very exotic and very very arcane, and what is effectively a comic book that was a story about a knight called Arcady, who existed, or it was set in about 700 or 600 years ago, but it was a campy romp with this triadic knight called Arcady and some of his powerful friends, like a super team, facing off against a scenery-chewing, over-the-top villain called Faceless and its undead hordes, and around Westgate, which is on the other side of the Sea of Fallen Stars. Then the last thing that you found in that was a sketch. It was basically being used as a bookmark in the book that Thoros'l is talking about, to mark a page with maps on it that had ley lines marked on them. It was marking that specific page, and it was a sketch of Thoros'l. But Thoros'l as he appears now, not as he appeared then, with the bandages and the breastplate and all.
Yeah, not as he appeared when he first joined us. But...
Not as he appeared at the time that you received that,
Mm-hmm.
but as he now appears, and it is possible that he gained inspiration from seeing that and tailored his
Mm-hmm.
look after that particular sketch. But it's a very strange coincidence.
Indeed.
But the book that Thoros'l is referring to
Mm-hmm.
is the only one in that satchel that was fully intact. The rest of them were crumbling and it looked like they had been used and reused and were falling apart. It's the only one that was fully intact, and it had a number of different explanations of what ley lines are and what they can be used for, how they can be used to channel arcane magic or even divine magic at specific sites where ley lines cross, where arcane magics are at their height, or even druidic or divine magics, any type of magics where these ley lines cross or where they gather are considered to be at their most powerful. And there are a couple of locations that were marked in that book, not in the original text, but was marked after the original text.
Yeah, somebody was drawing it.
Somebody was drawing on it and had multiple locations in this region. One being the city of Heliogabalus, or an area directly around the city of Heliogabalus, and one being the other one closest being at a location that you know to be just to the west of Impilter, and an ancient Imascari or Narfeli, I can't remember specifically, but an ancient civilization, the center of an ancient arcane empire. Not specifically Netheril, but another ancient Narfeli civilization, the center of their empire, called, and it still exists today. It's basically off limits to everybody. It's, the sword and wand of Impilter keep everyone away from it, but it's called the Citadel of Conjurers. That's the two locations that are marked in your book, or in the book that you have, that are where confluences of ley lines. They're crisscrossed all over the world.
Yeah.
Yeah, ley lines crisscross the entire globe, but this is where the most of those ley lines are in confluence, and they were specifically called out. You're standing on one of them in the city of Heliogabalus. Not specifically here, but in the city of Heliogabalus, or in this region. And the other is a few hundred miles away at the Citadel of Conjurers, or at the site to be the Citadel of Conjurers.
Well, whenever you bring that stuff in and start getting it out, I'll make for clear shit out of the way so Makaria can get a good look at everything, including if whatever we have left of the arcane apparatus schematics.
Yeah, 8-bit. I was going to ask about that as soon as you said that Skyma, the arcane web and weave. Is that something Makaria has seen or can know?
Make me an Arcana check.
So real quick, in the travels that we had, the stones definitely came up. So Makaria knows that Eldrick has those. She would have seen some of this stuff. We probably didn't have time for her to just pour over because she was pouring over other stuff. But she's definitely seen the map that has the circles on it. And she's probably seen the note about the 7.
Yeah. So
Arcana was 14.
Yeah, 14 on Arcana check. You've never seen any kind of arcane schema like this. This is not a spell. This is not a ritual.
Okay.
This is a construction. And looking just at how complex it is, you're going to need some time. You think you're a bright gal. You think that you could probably figure out what this is, even though it's kind of spread over a couple of different sources. And there's notes on it that are in a hand that is kind of shaky. The handwriting is bad, and it looks like somebody is using a shorthand that you don't quite get. There's references to some of the other works that are in this whole group of materials. So given some time and a good deal of effort, you could probably discern what was intended here. But just glancing at it, no, it's nothing you've ever seen before. What does catch your eye, however, there is one thing as you're looking at everything over. You're looking at the schemata, and there's notes to the different things on the books, and the book that Thoros'l was talking about, the one that has the ley lines in it. You're kind of moving it over, and it flips, and the cover claps closed, and you see on the spine, you see ley lines and other arcane schema throughout Faerun is the title. The author is Jadrin Azosha, and that is a name that you know.
Azosha?
Azosha, I'll put it in the chat. Okay. Jadrin Azosha. And that is a man that you know. I say man. He's 14 years old. He is one of the Avowed in Candlekeep, where you grew up. It is just after 10 p.m. Central Time. How's everybody doing?
I'm good.
Tired.
But I also don't have to wake up super early like some.
Do you guys want to end here for tonight, or do you want to keep going for a little bit longer? That's up to you. Entirely up to you.
I think this is a pretty good cliffhanger right here.
Okay. Well, give me 2 more minutes, and we'll stop with Eldrick and company at Oakheart, and we will return to Sprout. Sprout, yes. You are walking for what feels like a very, very long time.
Only because I can't see anything.
Only because you can't see anything. You can still hear after probably about an hour of walking. It's probably been about an hour because you can still very, very distantly hear the bells from Heliogopolis ring in I said this 6 o'clock hour before, so the 7 o'clock hour. You very, very distantly hear the bells of the city. You can no longer hear the sound of Lake Mogador. But your procession continues, and it's over rough terrain. It's getting hillier. It's getting rougher, considerably less flat, well-traveled land. Your procession comes to a stop. Then you begin to feel that tickle in the back of your brain, and you feel a humming feeling in your teeth. And you recognize, oh no, I'm close to a portal. And there is a flare of arcane energy that you feel. You feel it in your bones. A flare of arcane energy as you are transported from wherever you were to wherever you now are. The first thing that you recognize is cold. It is so cold and windy. You immediately think, oh, by the gods, I'm going to freeze to death right here where I stand. And then you recognize, like, the fog over your eyes starts to part. It's still dark, but it's not pitch black, not the pitch black of abject blindness. It's just dark. You can vaguely make out starlight overhead as you're looking around, and maybe some shapes here and there. You are casting about, and you do not see your 6 companions. You're standing alone in somewhere that it is very, very dark and very, very cold. You kind of look around a little bit, and directly in front of you, where you're facing, as your eyes start to kind of adjust, and I believe you have dark vision, yes?
I don't think I do.
Oh, really? Well, then,
think so.
you don't. Okay. As your eyes begin to adjust to the dark, and you start to feel your temperature drop, as it is so bloody cold here, you start to kind of walk around and you feel snow begin to crunch beneath your feet. And directly in front of you, you see this long, tall broken stone edifice. Looks like it may be a tower. There's a big piece of what may have previously been the top of this tower, partially buried in the snow and ice. And this this tall tower, like jutting up from the ground around you like a broken finger, stretching up toward the sky. And there is a faint glow of light from within. And that is where we are going to stop for the evening. Thank you to the cast. Thank you to everybody who came out and to see our little spectacle here this evening. We hope that you enjoyed it. I apologize for the sound issues. Until about 40 minutes ago, the cast was not audible apparently. So this is gonna be interesting. I did most of the talking anyway, I guess, for that original part. So I'll try to fill in the gaps where I can in the description, or release something that has more of an explanation of what happened, since you won't be able to hear the cast in the VOD. My apologies for that. Things just kind of got out of hand. We got a late start, and I didn't do all of the checks that I normally do. Thank you to the viewer that called that out in the chat. I very much appreciate you, and extra cookies for you at the end of this one. We are going to go ahead and call it there for the night. We will be back on Thursday, Friday this week with 4 Dads of the Arampocalypse, and we are talking about doing a Diablo 4 stream on Saturday night. So if you're interested in joining us for that, please feel free. Our Discord information is going into the chat right now if you have any interest in seeing more of the 4 Dads stuff. All of our information, all of the videos that we do, all of our streams immediately get uploaded to YouTube, which is also being linked in the chat. Come check us out on Discord. Drop us a follow if you liked what you saw. If you want to see more of our content, go to our Discord or our YouTube and join us for our additional streams Thursday, Friday, and Saturday this week. We will be back with more Bloodstone on Tuesday, March 28th. And until then, have a great night. Thank you again to the viewers and to the cast, and we'll see you next time. Good night.